Don't waste your money buying tech stuff and tech software that you don't understand and don't know how to use. Contact the Dot Experiment, the professionals in fixing all your stuff, man. So before you buy that cell phone, before you get that computer, contact the Dot Experiment. It's the only way to go. I'm telling you, that's how we roll it over here.
Give it to me, do it to me, give it to me. Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop. The way you make me.
Do you like music like this? That's right, I'm asking you. Do you like music like this? Then why have you not been to Sophisticated Saturday as yet? That's right, each and every third Saturday of the month, we call it Sophisticated Saturdays. Where we keep it at? Caribbeanlifetv Studios. 6254 Memorial Drive is the only place to be each and every third Saturday of the month. So if you want to celebrate your birthday, if you just want to come hang out and have some fun with grown people having big fun, Sophisticated Saturdays is the only place to be. It's brought to you by yours truly, DJ Reds, and my boy, Mr. B. Sophisticated Saturdays, every third Saturday of the month, 6254 Memorial Drive is where the grown people go and have good, clean fun. Every third Saturday of the month, man. The way you make me feel, I'm just going to have fun. I'll see you there. Sophisticated Saturdays. I got you.
It's the annual Independence Ball and Scholarship Awards presented by the Atlanta Jamaican Association in collaboration with the AJ Cultural and Educational Fund Inc. Saturday, August 10, 2024, Atlanta Airport Marriott Gateway Hotel, 2020 Convention Center Concourse, College Park, Georgia, 6 p.m. to 1 a.m. Celebrate Jamaica's 62nd year as an independent nation and support higher education of the next generation. Enjoy delectable food, music from the SWAT Band, and electrifying performance from Jamaica Festival legend Roy Rayon.
I have got this feeling, a very high feeling.
Music by Mikey Sparkle Production with DJ Cold Rice on the ones and twos. Keynote speaker Keisha Thorpe, Nobel Prize educator, Global Teacher 2021, and National Teachers Hall of Fame inductee. Hosted by Will Hart. Early bird 135 to July 1, 145 after. Scan the QR code for hotel and tickets. Call 404-777-9593 or visit AtlantaJamaicanAssociation.org. Sponsors Hartsfield Jackson Atlanta International Airport, GB Roofing Inc., Metals and Materials Engineers, Couples Resorts Jamaica, and PNC.
Attention Atlanta, get ready for an unforgettable experience at the Gap Meets Atlanta Caribbean Block Party and Hurricane Borough Disaster Relief Fundraiser. This is going to be at Stonecrest Distillery, 2520 Park Central Boulevard, Suite D, Stonecrest, Georgia. This event is supported by the Barbados Consulate in Miami and proudly sponsored by Caribbean International Shipping Services, the BTMI, Arabia Mountain Alliances, the Stonecrest Distillery, and Vital Infused Therapy. Join us for a day of fun, food, culture, and compassion as we come together to support the Caribbean islands affected by Hurricane Beryl. Bring your donations to our event and help our Caribbean neighbors rebuild and recover. If you want that full VIP experience for just $50, send your payment via Zelle to info@ubig246.org. And don't forget, include your name and your email address. It all happens at the Gap Meets Atlanta Caribbean Block Party and Hurricane Beryl Disaster Relief Fundraiser. Don't miss out on this incredible day of fun, unity, and celebration. See you there, Atlanta. Let's make a difference. Let me get your attention, please. Everyone get ready for another spectacular event celebrating Caribbean culture and fashion. Join us on July the 21st at the JVC Event Hall in Stone Mountain, Georgia for the Caribbean Paper Apparel Culture Show, featuring the amazing VI Heritage dancers. This event promises a night filled with vibrant performances, stunning fashion, and a rich Caribbean heritage. For ticket information, call 770-710-4462 or 317-514-9961. Don't miss out on this unforgettable cultural experience. That's right, the Caribbean Paper Apparel Culture Show is going down on July the 21st at the JVC Event Hall in Stone Mountain, Georgia.
Hi, this is Prima with Candid Co-Ed Conversations with me, just Prima. Tune in every Thursday night from 8:30ish to 10ish to see what we have going on. We talk about everything under the sun. Nothing is off limits. And call in 678-661-1819 with questions, comments, and feedback. Looking forward to it.
Courtesy of Jermaine
Thanks.
Mobley and your boy Arrow. Come on, y'all. Let's get them toes down. Dresses out. Bros, clean up your kicks. Yeah.
Weekend is coming up, let's open up the windows and let me lend you this melody to ride. I know you were stuck inside, but now it's party time. Yeah, it's party time. Yeah, sunlight is creeping in, we starting up so early, and we so Jersey. Cars parked out on the lawn. We may not be here for long. Cops come, we say so long. Yeah, yeah. So high, it's summertime. It feels like it's the day to go down. The sun is out, let's find a good place to cool down. It's just me and you now. Are you the one in line for me to spend the summertime? My car is looking clean, I washed it up this morning. Our heads are turning as I am rolling by. The baddest girl on my side, we'll have some fun tonight. Yeah, tonight, yeah. Just heard a barbecue is being thrown this evening. Don't worry, I'm leaving this barbershop right now. Ain't no way, no how. I'm missing out, I'm down. Yeah, I'm down. Yeah, I'm down. Yeah, I'm down. Yeah, come on. So high, it's summertime. It feels like it's the day to go down. The sun is out, let's find a good place to cool down. You and me, girl. It's just me and you now. Are you the one in line for me to spend the summertime? So high, baby.
That boy Eric Rowe.
Feels like it's the day to go down.
We control this lane, man.
Let's find a good place to
That
cool
girl is sexy.
down. It's just
Yeah.
me and you now. Are you the one in line for me to spend the summertime?
7-day forecast, hot. Spike Lee, do the right thing plot. I play Mookie, delivering pizzas to that sexy Spanish thing, looking juicy, big duty. We get silly, heat rays, get busy. That soul movement, rubbing the Philly cats. Broad Street, Flatbush, get busy. New summer anthem, Eric and Richie. I see beads of sweat dripping down tummies. Rectums and Daisy Dukes look yummy. I'm in that drop top with sweet cakes pumping in. Old school Buick sitting on Kiefer Sutherland's. Before the 16, figure out the riddle. My treat, meet me at Ish Kabibbles. You know the real Ish with Will Smith, he did it the first time. Chubb Rock's third, new summer rhyme. Come!
So high, yeah. Summertime, it feels like it's the day to go down. The sun is out, let's find a good place to cool down. Me and you, it's just me and you now. Are you the one in line for me to spend the summertime? Summertime.
Hey, I'm back. I know you missed me last week. I was on vacation. I needed the time. I had a wonderful time. I was on a cruise. I went to some Caribbean islands. It was wonderful. I want to give a special shout out to my taxi driver in St. Thomas, Shem, and Regalicious for entertaining us and selling us great jewelry. Hey, y'all. Hey. Hope you're getting the chance to tune in. So I am so glad to be back. I am excited. I have a guest, y'all. I am just too excited because I'm having guests. I'm not here by myself. I don't have to do this thing by myself. As always, if you would like to be a guest on my show, if you're an author, or has some information that you would like to share, please go to my website, RTF, T as in Tom, F as in Frank, mind.com, and go to the contact us page and fill out the form, and I will be in contact. I would love to have you on the show. So today we have a really special guest with some great information. I'm excited to speak with him. His name is Garfield Rowe, and he was a part of the Jamaican Defense Force. He was a warrant officer, regulating master chief. That was his title. So he has written an autobiography. Would you consider this an autobiography? He has written an autobiography, Life as a Soldier. So we're going to get the inside scoop, which I think is very interesting because I've had military people in my family. You know, I have a really close friend, 27 years in the Army. Hey, Ray. So I got a chance to hear. I've heard many stories from him. So I'm just really excited today to have you as a guest and share your story. To share your story with us. So I've had a chance to speak with him briefly, and I'm telling y'all it's going to be really good information. And again, although our cultures are different, you're from Jamaica, I'm from America, but just one page, a little bit of what we talked about is just reminded me of like, okay, I got an uncle that was just like that, right? So anyway, welcome Garfield, welcome to the show, and I'll give you a moment to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. This is an amazing experience and one of a kind, and I'm so elated to be here. And your program, of course, I've heard a lot about your amazing show, so I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, well, just jump right in. Tell us a little bit of who you are and what motivated you to write this book.
Okay, I'm Garfield Rowe. A name Garfield given me by my dad, who was a great cricketer fan and the Garfield Sobers, and so he decided to call me Garfield. A name I didn't like because I was teased a lot about Garfield being an old man's name growing up as a young child, and so but I embraced it. I grew up in Jamaica. I was born in the Jubilee Hospital in Kingston, Jamaica, and I grew up in some of the volatile areas before my dad moved to England, and of course, and I ended up living in England for a small period of time. Felt with a lot of prejudice and all of that. I was exposed to a good life, but based on how high the prejudice was at the time, I decided when my mom moved back to Jamaica that I would also return to Jamaica because I wasn't having that amount of prejudice as a young boy, having to deal with that, especially if my parents were not here with me. So pretty much I went back home, and I immediately, because my dad was in the military at the time, we got picked up at the airport and we moved directly into Up Park Camp. So I grew up as an army brat.
Yes.
And I guess that's where pretty much all of this started from, just growing in a military environment, having most of my friends being military children, and I guess, you know, from there, just being a soldier was kind of where I was heading because I liked the idea, I liked what I saw. But that was not the reason why the book was written. The book was written on another level, and why, you know, I did so many things, and why I did them was because of initially, you know, some things my dad said to me one particular day when I went to him for lunch money for school.
And what did he say?
As usual, you know, your parents would make sure that you are comfortable, you know, your books are paid for, your uniforms and everything is intact. And so on this particular day, I went to him for lunch money to go to school. And he said to me some words that I'll never forget, that and in Jamaican patois, as we would call it, I don't have the money to give you because, you know, seems like none of us come out to anything good. And that translated in lay English is that, you know, he thought that my three siblings were much older than I was. Well, not much older, but they were older than I was, and they graduated ahead of me because they were older than I was. They weren't doctors, nurse. Well, one of my sisters became a nurse eventually, but they were not doctors or pilots or, you know, a lawyer, which most parents at the time bragged about. And so he thought that with them having not been any of what he wanted them to be, then pretty much he wouldn't want to waste his time on me because I necessarily wouldn't be anything
else,
either. And so I really took offense to those words. And those were the words that I used as stepping stones to climb up and show him that I'm going to prove him wrong. And that's where this journey began.
So let me ask you, how old were you at that time?
I could have been somewhere about 16, 17 years old because I was just getting ready to finish high school. Yes.
So, and that's what I was saying earlier. You know, those were our motivating. Although those were cruel words, and I'm smiling not out of lack of consideration or acknowledgement that they were cruel for a 16 or 17-year-old. But it's so, like I was telling you, different cultures. But I have an uncle, and I love him to death. But my family, my uncle, my mother, my aunts, they were all hard on us just like that. And I can remember I was older and I was married, you know, felt like I was doing good. And I remember one Christmas we were all together and my uncle said, and he denies it now, but he said it. He was like, you know, all y'all just ain't really amounted to too much or nothing. And I was like, okay, none of us have been have been in jail, but none of us had the title of doctor, lawyer, you know, governor. No big titles, no professional titles by their definition. And I think for me, I've always understood that generation. And I understood how important it was for them to do so much better than they did. Because unlike your father, my mother and her sisters and brothers, you know, they were sharecroppers. They didn't have a high education level. You know, some of them didn't even finish high school. So they really, really pushed us. So that just hearing that, you know, reminds me that we're all the same. Just because you're Jamaican and I'm American, we still go through some of the same things with our families. You know, how hard they can be on us. So, all right, so that pushed you to, so that was, you were 16, 17. And so did you immediately know that you were going to go into the military, or how did that part?
I guess, as I stated before, growing up in a military environment, I was also a part of the cadet force, which is what you refer to as JROTC here. We refer to the cadets in Jamaica. I was also a member of the cadet force then. So I was already taking on that form, that paramilitary training. And so, you know, I figured I wanted to follow my father's footstep and go in that direction. So I thought that was in my mind from an early stage that I wanted to become a soldier.
All right.
But not necessarily what I've eventually accomplished after I joined.
Okay. So let me ask you, so I know in some countries, I know in Turkey, and I can't remember the other countries that I've heard of this. Is it mandatory in Jamaica? Because I know in Turkey, after you graduate high school, I think it's 2 years, if I remember correctly, you're mandatory to go into the military before you do anything else. Is it like that in Jamaica?
Initially, it wasn't like that, and currently I don't think it's that way either, but after many years, and quite recently, I think about 2017, 16, 17, the Prime Minister thought it necessary to you know, engage all the unattached youth, the guys who were not doing anything with themselves, to kind of point them in that direction, to give them paramilitary training, give them a skill so that the private sector and public sector could, you know, pool from that resource to get, you know, trained individuals. So the Prime Minister did do, but I didn't think it was mandatory as such, but it was an avenue to get kids who were not doing anything for themselves, to get them, recruit them into the army, give them a skill so that they can do something worthwhile for themselves.
And I know this will be a conversation to be had later. I so think that needs to be something that's done here. Because I think if that, I mean, you know, I can hear people, I don't want to be made, but I think you need to be made. Some people, especially even if you're not made, I think after you have so many offenses as a youth, for those that have multiple offenses, I think that should be a mandate. Right? Go on and use that energy over there and get some discipline or whatever. But all right, so tell us about your journey. What, you know, the reason why you wanted to write this and share your story.
Well, as I stated before, it was never ever intended to be an author. I never intended to be an author. I never intended to write anything. I gather based on my father's words, I started out by, as I said, 7 brothers, 7 different minds. I'm going to show my dad that while he stereotyped me at the time, I'm going to do as much as I can to prove him wrong, that I could be somebody. And so when I joined the Army in 1985, I was really encouraged initially by two factors. One, I had a daughter that was born in January 1985, and I thought, no, I have a responsibility. So while I was doing additional studies after leaving high school at another college, was St. George's College, I was going to do additional studies there. But then a friend of mine, Dale Kitson, saw me one afternoon and asked me, because I grew up in camp, he wanted to know if I could assist him in joining the JDF. And funny enough, that Friday before I saw him on the Sunday, I met up with Colonel Barnes, John Barnes, who played 2 World Cup. Most people know John Barnes because he played for England in 2 World Cup. Colonel Barnes was his father, and we lived close by on a military base. So he saw me and asked me, why wasn't I joining the Army? And I told him I wasn't quite ready. So he encouraged me to, join the Army and, to if I knew any cadets that, wanted to be a part of the system, we should, contact him. So when Dale and I spoke, and I told him that I just recently spoke with Colonel Barnes, and he did indicate that cadets could join. And one of the guys that was at the recruiting center was a former cadet as well.
Okay.
That was in charge of the recruiting department. So I said to Dale, you know what, come on Monday and, I'll just point and you already know Mr. Anglin. So Michael Anglin was a sergeant in cadet, and he's now one of the recruit instructors there. So, go down to the headquarters and so forth. And early that morning, Dale came, woke me up. But he wouldn't go alone. He wanted me to accompany him.
He wanted you to go with him. Okay.
And so I did go with him, and from there, I got involved in a process that I wasn't quite ready for. But my career started right there and then.
Right there and then.
Yes.
All right. So now, I asked you this earlier, but I'll get more clarification. So how is the JDF different from the military system that we have here? Because we have the Army, Navy, Marines, and the National Guards. I think I got everybody.
Yeah.
Army, Navy, Marines, National Guard. So how is that different?
It's pretty much the same. As you know, we were from the British colony. So our training and most of what occurred during our time was coming from the British. While the United States branched off and became the United States, they, I guess, tried to do things slightly different from what the British were doing and rename some of the things that the British had. So the Army still remain the Army in both places. In Jamaica, we have an Army. The United States have an Army. We don't have an Air Force, but we have an Air Wing, which is a smaller unit. And we don't have a Marine section, but we have the JDF Coast Guard. And we also have logistics and support battalions, which kind of equate. So it's not much different because we do training in America and in the UK and other armed forces across the globe. So, we kind of interrelate what we do. So there's not much difference other than the title and maybe because we're a third world country, our resources are less than the United States. But outside of that, we pretty much, it's this common goal and same goals that we're achieving to acquire when we join the JDF or any other forces. So
do you all join in, and you have to forgive me, I'm not up on all of my NATO and all of that. Geography wasn't a major interest of mine. But so when we go into different incidents of war, do you all ever come and pair in any of that?
We do. In fact, while I was in training, just a few days before we graduated from training school, we were engaged in I think it was some coup attempt in which country was that? Grenada.
Okay.
And we had Jamaican soldiers at that time serving in Grenada, assisting as a peacekeeping troop. My batch just slightly missed out on being deployed there because just during that time it came to an end. But I was fortunate enough to have served 1991 when they shot the Prime Minister in Trinidad. Abu Bakr attempted coup. And we were sent there as part of the restoration crew for peacekeeping. So I was deployed to Trinidad during that time and served until they were able to restore some form of normalcy in Trinidad. I was also deployed in 95 in Haiti during the restored democracy, when President Aristide was hosted out of the country and there were United Nations went in. So I served and was deployed on those two cases in terms of, deployment overseas, as we would call it.
Okay, okay. So tell us again, share some of the, not everything, because we want you all to get the book. It is on Amazon, but share with us some of your experiences, again, that you wanted to put in the book and, get people to understand. Because on the back, you tell us, that it's in the groundbreaking moment with annals of the Jamaica Defense Force, history was quietly etched as Warrant Officer Regulating Master Chief Garfield Rowe embarked on a journey that would redefine the very fabric of service.
And that was done unknowingly, of course. But yes.
Oh, okay.
After my father, said those words to me, it meant a lot to me to prove my dad wrong. So I was encouraged by a couple of my friends because I really wanted to join the Army as a commissioned officer, having been in the cadet. In fact, in the cadet unit, I was the first cadet to be appointed Regimental Sergeant Major for the 1st Battalion, Jamaica Combined Cadet Force.
Okay, so the Cadet unit,
cadet.
How does that compare?
The cadet is like a paramilitary, just like your GROTC here.
Okay.
Right, so that's a similarity. So we're paramilitary, do a little bit of drilling, map reading, and so forth, instill discipline, same kind of concept. So I joined that and became the first to be appointed Regimental Sergeant Major for the cadet, for the 1st Battalion.
Okay.
And history would also show today that I'm the only cadet Regimental Sergeant Major to have joined the Jamaica Defense Force and retained that rank of Regimental Sergeant Major.
Okay.
So that's where the groundbreaking started from. So when I became, when it was time for me to join, I was kind of trying to make sure I qualified. I didn't have enough subjects from high school to join as an officer, and I wanted to join as a commission rank, to be a leader from at least from the top. So, a couple of my friends were joining at the time from the same cadet units and friends that I knew from high school, and they said, listen, if you're a cadet RSM, when you join the JDF, you could quickly rose back to that rank. So don't wait to become an officer. Join as an enlisted soldier. And I did that. Unfortunately, I was injured in training.
Oh.
Yes, I was injured in training. The training was meant to break us and mentally, push us to a point where when we go out on operations, we can stand our grounds. And so we weren't even pretty much aware what they were doing. We thought we were just being cruel. And so I had a minor injury. And so over time, when the training officer decided to punish us as a group, I wasn't able to do that rigorous punishment because I was just coming off a medical disposal. So he decided to put me in a box with some other recruit and asked the remaining recruits to run around the square with the box, and it fell and I injured myself. I was actually airlifted from the training ground into Kingston so that I could be hospitalized, and I was in hospital for quite a bit of time. And when I returned to training, I felt like I was losing what I wanted to do because now they have me as a paralegic, somebody who can't complete the training, somebody who is now physically unfit. And I wanted to prove that that's not the case. I joined to be a soldier, and a soldier I will be. So I forged against all odds and decided to complete, the training as much as I could. And I graduated the training ground and was sent to the 1st Battalion, Delta Company 1GR. And from there, they still had me doing odds and ends jobs that I didn't want to do. In fact, one year they tried to turn me into a cook. And that's the first time I was arrested because I said, listen, I didn't want to join. I didn't join the army to be a cook. I thought as a cadet RSM, I had already established myself in the cadet crew. So I can't be anything less in the JDF. So to try to turn me into a cook, that's not where I want to be at. And so I was arrested. The corporal thought I was insubordinate.
Yes.
Right? And so the regimental sergeant at the time, RSM Lynch, was a friend of my father. They all played in the band together before he was appointed. And he recognized and knew that my dad was serving. And he said to me, listen, Private Rowe, any course that the system is offering you, take the course once they're issuing you a certificate because it's good for you. And then from there, you can figure out what you want to do after the course. And so he encouraged me to do the course, and I did. So I cooked for a year. But I can't tell you this much. I have not cooked again since I left the JDF. That was
That
the
was going to be
something,
my
yes.
next question. Like, oh, so you can cook. No.
So I really didn't despise cooking now that I don't even, my kids will remind me every day, but Dad, you don't cook, you know?
Yes.
But since then, I decided to forge on, and that injury that I attained during the time, I wasn't going anywhere. So for the first 3 years of my career, military career, I was really stagnant. You know? And I decided that I need to find a way, especially if I was going to prove my father wrong, to get out of this. So I started to suppress. I was doing physiotherapy for the first 3 years. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I had to go for physiotherapy. And that was what was setting me back. So I had to tell myself that, you know, if I need to move ahead, I need to suppress my sickness. Tell myself that nothing was wrong with me and forge it. And that's what I did. I stopped going to physiotherapy. I started to do things that I'm thinking would help propel me. And so one of the things I did was, while they were pushing me around doing alternate job, I had a liking for administrative duties, which was being a clerk.
Okay. Yes.
I would type the orders, I would do the documentation in the office. And so I applied and did the course and successful in passing both the basic, intermediate, and advanced clerical course. And I then got my first promotion in the clerical field as a lance corporal.
Okay.
And then I was sent now I was working in the battalion headquarters at the time with all the other clerks and administered by a senior chief clerk. And so from there I was sent to a smaller unit, one of the companies now, as a chief clerk at the smaller unit level, where I was managing the office all by myself. And so that's where I got my first promotion from. While I was there, I started doing a little bit of patrolling and so forth, and you know, and then I started going on the training that they thought I wasn't physically fit to do. So I did the section commander battle course, the platoon sergeant battle course, and before you know it, I was now ready to take on the challenges that was being denied because persons thought that I was not fit enough to do any of these things.
Yes.
And while in the clerical field, the whole country and the world was going computerized in the 80s. So they had formed the data processing unit in the JDF, and I thought that I'd love to learn about computers. And so I decided to apply to go to the computer department. And that's where I went, and I stayed there until I got to the rank of a sergeant. And whilst I was there doing all kind of training, I became good at it. The Microsoft Office suite came out.
Yes.
I learned it.
So you're
And
like
now
me. You've been doing it since the beginning.
From the beginning. We got the book.
From
we
the
went
very
through it,
beginning.
and then
3.0.
Right. And then we had to use that now and teach the rest of the force how
Yes.
to use the Microsoft suite.
Yes.
Now, in doing that, a lot of soldiers, only soldiers who were in the clerical field, and mainly female at the time, was qualified to do those courses free. So because of that now, and persons saw how I was doing and I was teaching, a lot of soldiers now start reaching out to me to see if I could get their wife or their girlfriend private lessons. And I started doing that in my free time after work, where I started training these soldiers who were not entitled and wanted the training, their girlfriend or their wives. And it kind of took off where, you know, once I started, that person was asking me, why don't I own my own computer school? But before I got to that, at one point in time, because again, as I said, the whole world was being computerized. So they were computerizing the judicial system in Jamaica. And they wanted all the high court judges to be trained in computers. And so from a government perspective, they thought that the upper camp, the military base, would be a safe place to have all judges in one location. So all of that came under my tenure, where I trained initially those first set of judges in IT. In fact, the first week, we had a gentleman, Chief Justice Orr. He did the first week of training, and by the second week, when the remainder came back, he wasn't there, and I inquired about him, and he passed away. And whilst it was a sad thing, they were subtly saying, in joke that, maybe it was too much bits and bytes that he was being taught that, causes demise. Jokingly, of course.
Yeah.
But then that training was interrupted by the fact that that deployment I told you in Haiti, Jamaica, Defense Force was tasked to find an IT sergeant
Oh.
to go to the United Nations. And so my boss, Major Chambers at the time, selected warrant officer. I was warrant officer Campbell. Philip Campbell was meant to go, but I think he was getting ready to retire from the JDF. So he partly turned it down, and as the next senior person in line, the offer came to me as a sergeant. And so I ended up going to the United Nations.
Okay.
And while working there, they, again, prejudice stepped in because they saw this Jamaican guy with a CARICOM patch. What does he know about computer?
Yes.
So as soon as I got there, they tasked me to go rectify a situation. And I went there, and I recognized that the problem they were having was just too many applications open. It was confusing the system, so they couldn't print. I just closed them down, restart the system. They're up in a couple seconds. And, you know, after that, I start getting tasks that other persons couldn't do, repairs that persons couldn't do. I did a training at Vector Design, which was a computer courses outside that teach you how to build and repair computers. So I had those knowledge going into the United Nations. So when I started performing things that other persons couldn't do, they would call me. And then the general who was in charge of that mission from the U.S., two-star General Kinzer, I think his name was, he had a secretary who was a civilian, but she was just as powerful as he was being a civilian. She would refer to me as a little Jamaican boy. Go send for the little Jamaican boy. Let him come fix it, you know, with some prejudice way.
Yeah.
But I was always go there and get the job done. So they recognized that my skill set was very valid. And so they wrote Jamaica asking me to stay over the 7 months that I was initially there for.
And you were here in the States?
And Haiti. I was in Haiti.
In Haiti.
Right.
Okay,
So
okay.
They wrote Jamaica, asked me to stay until the mission was completed. But I was getting additional funding other than what the other soldiers were getting.
Yes.
Because we were hosted in a hotel, all the persons working in the UN headquarters staff. Now, all my soldiers from Jamaica was living in the field in tents. So I was one of two Jamaican who was living in a hotel.
Okay.
And so, because whichever country you're from was in that huge hotel, the U.S., as they normally do, they wanted only just the U.S. soldiers to be there. So they paid everybody else $2,000 to seek accommodation outside of the hotel. So I lived on the economy. So I was getting $2,000 plus the money that every soldier was getting. Plus my pay was accumulating back home for the 7 months. So when persons look at me, I was getting rich. And so in my mind, and I could be wrong, that when they wrote Jamaica asking for me to extend my stay in the United Nations, I think they looked at the money I was more getting than the achievement of me making Jamaica proud. And so it was decided that I should not stay but to come back home.
Oh.
Right?
Haters are always going to hate.
And so that's what one of the, and the book clearly states that that's some of the challenges that I had. They also offered me initially, there was a civilian IT staff that they're there that issued us the military, because I was working in the military IT department for the UN. And there's a civilian side of it that they bring all the equipment they issue to us and we configure them and we send them out to the Bangladesh, the Jamaicans, the Americans, the Canadians. So my team was responsible for that. So that civilian staff also recognized my skill set and offered me a job on spot to move my family from Jamaica to New York and then send me to Bosnia for 3 years.
Oh, goodness.
And when I didn't accept there, when I got to Jamaica, they also sent me a follow-up letter saying that they wanted to do this, and I also turned it down because at that time, I was doing very well in the Jamaica Defense Force. I would have retired and go be a civilian IT. I wasn't ready for that. So,
you wasn't ready.
Yeah, so I turned that down and continued my work.
And so what was your age range around that time? What was your age range?
In the 30s.
Okay, so
yeah.
So you had been in for a while before
yes.
you got to that level.
Yes.
Okay.
Because when you make sergeant, you have to be there for a while to make even sergeant in the army.
Okay.
And so I did that, and that was one of the major accomplishments. So when they pulled me back, and this is me doing the best I can do, as I said, because I'm trying to show my father that, hey, anything I'm doing, I'm going to do the best of it. And this was one of the first, outside of my military achievement that I've been doing coming up. It was my first big, I would say, something worthwhile talking about. That I did so good that the United Nations would reach out to Jamaica and say they wanted me to stay for the mission. Now, the headquarters, I went on leave because I had enough money to fly down. So I fly down on my vacation. And when I went home, I was called by my commanding officer saying that the headquarters had received a letter from the government that they wanted me to extend. So their job was to find out. The chief of defense staff at the time wanted my commanding officer to say whether or not I could stay or not. And it boiled down that they came up with every other reason why I couldn't stay. And one of the reasons was that my daughter was doing, due for a major exam at her level at the time. The warrant officer was in charge of the department was leaving, and I would have been the next person in line to take over. There was a course I should have gone on into the United States, and I need to come and do that course. And they said every other reason and why I couldn't stay for another 7 months. But after they pulled me back, and I stayed 2 months after, I was sent to stay 7 months in the United States on an IT course.
So you ended up coming on, doing it anyway.
So I came right here in Atlanta, Georgia. I went to Fort Garden.
Oh, yes.
Army Signal Center, where I did 7 months of IT training.
Okay.
And again, in doing that, I wanted to be the top student. And so I became the first international student to maintain a grade point average of 96.2.
All right.
As an international student, so much so that the commandant of the school awarded me with a special certification when I got I did my IT with honors and completed the 2 ANOC and BNOC IT training in Fort Garden. So that's where so again, and another letter went to Jamaica saying that this guy, as an international student, outdid everybody else, and I was awarded a special certificate. So again, another major achievement.
So Fort Gordon, where's that? That's
in Augusta.
Augusta. I was
yes,
going to say Augusta,
yes,
so
Augusta.
I know then. So let me ask you, you accomplished a lot. And you are very, very determined. And you said a couple of times, it was after your father. You wanted to prove to your father. So let me ask you, do you think you had, in that proving, do you think you felt any animosity toward your in in trying to prove and show him? Or were you just naturally? Because sometimes it's like, well, I'm going to prove him wrong. And, that kind of thing. Or how would you say that was?
Well, I did show some animosity to my dad, but it wasn't because of those words. When I joined the army, he retired 2 years after. So we both served in the same army, and then he retired 2 years after. At that time, I was hoping that being an adult now, he and we could build together. And I suddenly realized that we had a conversation one evening, and the next day I came, he was gone. He had gone, he had left. He had left the marriage with my mom. He went on, got remarried, kind of left us.
No.
But he long after he told me that, he waited, because he was having problem within the marriage, and he said he waited until after all of us finished school.
Yes.
Then that's the time he left. But he just didn't say anything to me, and I felt resented because he was my idol. He's the person I'm following in his footsteps. So he disappeared for a while. And when I eventually found out that he had gotten remarried and where he was living, I wasn't having it. I was kind of beside myself trying to figure out why he did that. We are his children. Why didn't he come here? We're old enough for him to speak to us about it, and he didn't. So most of my anger was against that. Not so much
the words.
The words, because everything else started becoming natural for me. Because I've said that anything I touch, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And in those 2 deployments alone, showed, and that's not even where it all came from. The fact that even outside of the IT training that I was doing, persons encouraged me to open a computer school. And I did that.
Okay.
I ran a computer school, Computer Professional Training Institute, and I started teaching so much so that the United States had a program in Jamaica where they're trying to get institutions to do some inner city programs, and my school was selected from the United States for that program. So
that was great.
We did a community project in Standpipe and Grand Spend, where I was paid an enormous amount of money as well for that project. So again, that was another achievement. But what the challenge that came with, and the meat of my book now, is the fact that whilst I am growing, I rose to, when I was a sergeant, there was a time period. We get monthly paid. And there was 1 month when the government had some issues within the final institution, and somehow we didn't get paid as promised. And when you work for an entire month and you're expected to be paid and not paid,
Yeah, that's a little
moral,
irritating.
So I found that at that time the moral of the force was very low.
Okay.
But during my tenure of growing up, when I lived in England, I was accustomed to all the children that lived there. Whenever it's their birthday, there would be a party. And so every now and then we were going to party, and every time you go to a party, you have to bring a gift. You can't turn up to somebody's party
And not have a gift, yes.
And that's out. So I grew up doing that. So when I moved back to Jamaica, I started having my annual parties. And people from school, from the cadet force, who knows me, my parties to be something that people want to come to.
Yes.
And that has been tradition over the years. So I started planning events. So when I joined the JDF now, I started putting on events at the Corporals Club level, fashion shows, barbecues. I'm the go-to guy to organize events of such magnitude. And so that particular year when the government wasn't able to pay us and the morale became so low, I reached out to one of my regimental sergeant at the time, RSM Zaki Isaac, as we would call him. And I said, why don't we do a concert for the afternoon and raise the morale of the soldiers? And he gave his go-ahead. But what happened next was that I now decided with a friend of mine, Keisha Davey, we started visiting the studios. And all this international reggae artists in Jamaica, I went out there and I spoke to them and I said, listen, when you guys are having your shows and getting your money, we are protecting the streets so that you can enjoy your dividends. We're having a concert in our camp, and would love if you could come in and give us, some support free of cost.
Yes.
And when the two biggest artists in Jamaica, Bunty Killer and Butcher Banton, decided that they were coming on board, then everybody else wanted to follow suit. And so we had one of the biggest stage show in camp, free, with every Junior Reed, Frisco Kid, Frankie Paul, Winnie Wonder, Buju Band. Well, Buju wasn't there because he did say to me that he's on board because I had him on the flyer.
Yes.
But he did say to me that if he has a show, then he won't forget that because that's money for him. And he did get a show. So he didn't get to come to it, but everybody else was there. And it was a major event that, But at that time, I was just coming back from IT school in Georgia. And my boss thought that I was doing too much extra curriculum activities outside of writing programs.
It's always haters gonna hate.
And so, with that being said, he warned me to put it down and leave it alone. But I didn't. I followed through on it and I had the show done. Yes, the result of that, I was seen on a disciplinary interview. And based on how it was, I was now told that I was at an interview at 8:30. And I was there until almost 10 o'clock, where the commanders was inside discussing my faith. So when I went in, I eventually marched in, and they asked me if I have anything to say based on all the, what I was being accused of. I decided that it wouldn't make sense I said anything because if you were in there discussing, you already know what you're going to do. So I said, no, sir, I didn't have. And I was immediately transferred back to a location, which is a training depot where all recruits are trained, which is in the mountains, right? A little away from everything else. So in other words, I was being isolated in my mind. So I was being isolated. I was not there under promotion or demotion. I was just there, just at anything they want done. Anything IT, I'm there. Anything, I'm there, So whilst being there, because I just gotten back from Haiti, I brought back a lot of stuff I bought. A mini refrigerator, office refrigerator, components, set, microwave. And I took all of that with me when I was going up there. So I went up there and started living some life. I was comfortable. I was in a room, not really tasked to do anything, but anything they want me to do, they'll call me, and I was there. And that never lasts for, I didn't think, a week.
Oh.
2 female soldiers came by my quarters, and they worked in the headquarters. And they came and saw how I was living, and somehow words got back to the base.
He's enjoying it.
A helicopter was landed on the square, and I was ordered.
Haters gonna hate.
No, helicopters don't just come for any rank in the army. You go for the Prime Minister and some senior officials. So when that helicopter landed on the square and said, I'm to report to a park camp, I'm like, okay. So I did that.
Okay. Let's take a minute. I see we have some guests. It's been really interesting, and I have some more questions for you. Miss Jacqueline Atwater Burse. Hey, Jackie. Thank you for joining. And I see we have a Sharon Mercurius. Please forgive me if I said that wrong. From Georgetown, Guyana. Thank you. I'm so glad you're joining us. Hope you're enjoying the show. So then your service in the JDF was primarily IT.
For most part of it.
For most part of it. Did you do any kind of military fighting? Did you have to do any fighting or anything?
Well, before I got to the IT department, I was in the infantry where we did little patrol in the streets, you know. So, you know, when I became a lance corporal, I was a patrol commander, leading patrols on the street and so forth. But outside of those two deployments I spoke about earlier, about Haiti and Trinidad, there's not much ongoing fighting that I got myself in. I was mainly in administration.
Okay.
But that was the problem because I got to the most senior rank in the IT department. I got to the warrant officer class 2. And there I was maxed out. I couldn't go any further. There was no scope for growth unless they were going to cross over to be promoted to an officer. And at that time, that was not the intention. So I decided that, you know, I don't like to be stagnated because I'm still trying to prove my father that I want to be the best at what. And you're not going to stop me right here. So I recognized that I got to a point where there's no more scope for growth. And so I had to either leave the department or be commissioned. And I don't think they had at the time to commission me. So I got the opportunity to do the Regimental Sergeant Major's course. It was given to somebody else in my battalion, but he didn't want it because he was religious. And that course was being run on a weekend. And he thought that as a Christian, he didn't want to miss a Sunday service. So he turned it down, and I eventually went. Now, sure enough, I came second on that course. Now, my department, my battalion wanted a regimental sergeant major because the sergeant major that was there got promoted to an officer. And so there was a vacancy. So I thought now that since I did the course, I'm a very rounded individual in the battalion, they'll be looking at me. That was not the case. They had me at this IT guy. I'm just IT. Because most RSM is infanteers and they did a lot of drilling and so forth. So they thought being in the IT, I was not suited for that. So I asked for an interview. And when I asked for the interview, I was told that by my command officer that there were better candidates. So I looked at him and I said, sir, with due respect, what do you use to decide who is better than who? What are the measures? Because throughout my career, I went on the warrant officer course. I topped it. I was the top guy in the course with all of the top guys. I did the regimental sergeant major course. I came second. So now my battalion wants an RSM. Why are you saying they're better candidates? Show me. So I was being sarcastic in my comment. What do you use to measure is better than who? And he rocked back in his chair, thought about it for a while. He didn't give me an answer to say whether I would have been promoted or not. But I got so uncomfortable that I was thinking it's time for me to retire because if I'm not going any further, I'm not going to just be here and stagnant. So what I did, I spoke with my commander, and there came an opportunity where the IT, the former chief of defense staff from the Coast Guard was the head of the army, and when he retired, he started managing the Maritime Authority of Jamaica. So he had an IT manager with him, and she got pregnant and was going on maternity leave. So they requested the JDF to send somebody. My boss decided to send me out there. Okay. So I went out there and worked for 4 months and did very great things while I was there. And so much that they even wanted to keep me out there. So I got a call that I need to come for an RSM interview from my boss in camp, at the time, Major Sinclair. So I said, Mom, you sure our role is for RSM interview? Because pretty much I didn't think they were thinking of me. She said, yes, you're for an interview. I said, what's my dress code? Because I'm attiring civilian clothes. I'm out of the system on secondment. She said, come in your shirt and tie. So I went. When I went there, I saw every person who is a potential regimental sergeant major from across the force there on the veranda waiting to be interviewed. And so I got there and I said, okay, so this is not just an interview for me. It's to choose because of the question I asked. What do you use to say who is better than you? So they took everybody that they thought would have been qualified now, and was bringing them into a panel of commanding officers.
So they could
for them to
figure
choose.
out how to measure it.
So when we got there, we sat on the veranda, and it seemed as if they were not even prepared already for us at the time. So one of the commanding officers came out and said, okay, we're going to postpone this interview. You're all going to come back in 2 weeks' time, dressed in your number 2 dress, everybody, and you're going to bring your CV with you, your curriculum vitae, which tells like your resume.
Yes.
And because I'm computer, I went in and I typed up mine. I put a picture in the far right corner and I dressed up nicely.
Dressed it up.
And I turned it in. And eventually went on that interview when it was required. And I think, results show that I did very well, because the first question they asked me, why was I want to be an RSM? And I said, I don't want to be an RSM. I'm in IT. I wanted to go as far in IT because that's where the world is going. But there's no scope for growth, and I want to move ahead. So they said, what happens if you're not selected? I said, well, sir, this is the Army. If I'm not selected, I just carry on until it's time for me to retire. I retire, but I have no hard feelings. Do you have any shortcomings? Yes, I do have shortcomings. Nobody is perfect. So what you'll do if I said, well, there are other persons who would have done this before me. If I can pull into their resources, if I don't know behind the scene, I'll be able to, So when the interview ended, I got a call from a female that worked in the headquarters. She said, listen, Garfield, she's a friend of my sister, was also a soldier. But the interviews, the report shows that you are the top performer in the interview. Right? Only things that you're not going to be promoted now, but you're on the top of the list for the next set of promotions. And I got a call from the commanding officer for the 2nd Battalion that he has opted to take me as his drill sergeant into the 2nd Battalion.
Okay.
And that's a stepping stone, because from a drill sergeant, you become a regimental sergeant major. But the fact that my unit at the time, the support battalion, had the vacancy, and the last 2 persons that was promoted into that vacancy didn't go through the regular process. They were just promoted into it. So I thought I could have been as well, but that was not the case. And it seems to me, for all of my Army career, that everything that I go towards, if it's easy, it becomes harder by the time I get there.
Yes.
So I always have to be proving myself. So this is where all the challenges comes in. And that's what I will tell you, all of this turned into where it's at from that point.
So we got to wrap it up. But before we do, I want to ask you, for people like me, and because you have a very strong determination.
Yes.
And you don't let anything deter you from it.
Right.
What would you say was your secret for that? Because so many people like me, we have dreams, we want to do things, and we're putting we put a good foot forward. We feel like we're doing a good job, but it's always somebody there to trip you up, or we're not gonna, she's not really a good fit, or whatever. All of those reasons. The primary reason why I got out of corporate America.
I'm happy you asked that question.
But add value. You're pointing to this, Garfield Add Value Rowe.
That was my nickname.
Okay. Because everything you did, you added value.
And not only that, I encouraged it. So when I was eventually sent to the 2nd Battalion, coming from the IT department, I was not welcome. I was an outsider. Because to be our regimental sergeant major, you merely come through the infantry and you grow in the infantry. So other persons who were in waiting didn't like the idea that I was just coming selected from an IT department to come manage that department to become a regimental sergeant. So the struggle became right there.
Okay.
And when I came, the first thing I tried to do was to educate the warrant officers and senior NCOs under my command about IT. And they didn't receive it well, because they think that, because you're IT man, you're coming to teach us IT instead of drill or so forth. But that's where the world was going, and I wanted my warrant officers and senior NCOs to be educated in information technology. And they only saw the need for that long after, when they were going on courses afterwards. They were required to use a laptop that they know saw the need. But I
knew it.
But I got cursed out for it.
Yes.
But the add value syndrome is what I would say. Whenever I speak to my battalion, my soldiers, I say, gentlemen, you must always add value. Not when you feel like, not sometimes, or when you want to, all the time. If you're not adding value, you're remaining constant. Because if you're not improving on something, it's going to be remaining constant. Or you're taking away from, which means that you're not adding value or devaluing. So always add value. And when you add value, you shouldn't do it just when you want to, or when you feel like, or sometimes. You must add value all the times. And I did not only say it, but I demonstrated it. And so every unit of the force, when I was in the 2nd Battalion. When I moved to the 2nd Battalion, despite they didn't want me there, that battalion became the best battalion of the force. And when they speak about moral and esprit de corps, they were on top. They were winning all the sports. They won the Queen's Medal shoot. They won the Queen's competition. They won the football. They won the swimming. They won the crawl competition. And they put them on the map. So 2 years after, I was now time for me to move to the support battalion. Right? And when I got to the support battalion now, similar things happened. Whatever 2GR was winning, the support battalion is now winning because of the same kind of leadership that I put forward. Okay. The interesting part comes up now that I'm in the support battalion, and then the Coast Guard was losing their regulating master chief. And whatever the decision were, I was selected to go. People have different reasons why I went there or why I didn't go there, but I end up in the Coast Guard, not having any knowledge, because the Coast Guard is a different unit from the rest of the force. It's a more laid-back unit. The culture is different, the dress is different, the language is different. And so me going over there, I had to learn these things all over. Plus, as a middle manager to manage it, I had to learn it. But fortunate enough for me, the commanding officer in charge at the time, when I got there, properly briefed me enough that I could go there and hit the ground running. When I was going there, because of my stance, I'm a strong disciplinarian when it comes to leadership. And it makes me different from, because most of my former regimental sergeant majors, they wanted to be commissioned. Right? So most of them weren't really doing the job that we wanted to do. They wanted to be promoted to officer status. So, you know, whilst I was doing the job, it's like I was the only one in real sense, and I was being criticized because so when it was time for me to do the Coast Guard, they were putting up placards like when you having a riot or something that they don't want me to come because I'm coming to regiment the Coast Guard. But when I got there, people are saying, well, you going to the Coast Guard now? There is a laughing stock because now that we're at the Coast Guard, Coast Guard is not winning anything. They're always at the bottom of the crop. And they're always losing. But I got there and turned Coast Guard around to make them #1 in the force. All
right. Well, Garfield, I have thoroughly enjoyed this. And so we have to wrap it up. But what I want to do, I want you to close us out. I'm going to say always keep reading to feed your mind. But I want you to close it out by saying what you just said about adding value. Yes. And that will close us out for the day. And then I'll get you to sign my book.
Right. The add value syndrome came out, again, as I said, because of what I do and what I encourage to do, and tell everyone to do the best they can each time. Put your best foot forward. That is what, will put you to where you want to go. And once you're adding value, you're really, so for me, I didn't just come and say this was there for 1914, so I'm going to make it safe. I can improve upon what was there before to make it better. That's what I do. And I not just only say it, I encourage it. And throughout my military career, that's what I've done. So much so that even since I retired, I came and formed the Arden Alumni Association, the Atlanta chapter, as founder and president. And also the founder and president for the Jamaica Ex-Soldier Association here in Atlanta, again, because I'm intending to add value.
All right.
So that is all that is. And then
always add value.
And I've always been encouraged to tell my story. And so I stopped for a moment and I said, I really should document this, because if I didn't document this, then nobody would really know how I became RSM Land, Air and Sea, where I'm the only serving member to date in a lateral movement that was in the infantry, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, and the support battalion.
That's
and
excellent.
It's most unlikely to happen again based on how things are. So this is a really great thing.
All right. Well,
so
thank you.
Get the book. I'm out to
get the book. Get the book, and I will be reading it. It's short. I mean, it's a good book, but it has like some pictures. So if you're a picture person, to help accompany your story. So this was really great. I thank you so much for coming and joining us on the show. I wish you much success. And I get the book, you all. It's on Amazon. Garfield.
Barnes & Noble as well.
And Barnes & Noble as well. Garfield Add Value Rowe, Life as a Soldier. All right? Thanks for tuning in with us. I'll see you next week. Awesome.
Weekend is coming up, let's open up the windows and let me lend you this melody to ride. I know you were stuck inside, but now it's party time. Yeah, it's party time. Yeah, sunlight is creeping in, we starting up so early. And we so Jersey, cars parked out on the lawn. We may not be here for long. Cops come, we say so long. Yeah, yeah. So high, it's summertime. It feels like it's the day to go down. The sun is out, let's find a good. Are you the